Hello. Last few weeks I've been talking about a number of different modes of joy that were important to C.S. Lewis. And today I want to give a shout out for merriment. You might think it sounds a bit superficial, something that happens to you after you've had a couple of glasses of sherry. But Lewis gives it a lot more weight than that. It's always part of the celebration after victory's been won, of course. And it's part of the way we share joy together. And it's part of the general joy of humble, everyday life with that self-forgetfulness that I mentioned last week that Lewis thought was a characteristic of good, honest pleasure. Lewis used to meet a couple of times a week with friends and other academics, either in his rooms in Magdalen College or at the Eagle and Child public house in Oxford, or Bird and Baby they nicknamed it, in a group they called the Inklings. And one of them was Dr. Robert Humphrey, Lewis nicknamed him, and he told how, as well as the serious discussions, the point which one chiefly remembered about these meetings is their humour, their hilarity. And Lewis's brother Warney as well describes how sometimes the fun would be riotous, with Jack at the top of his form and enjoying every minute, an outpouring of wit, nonsense, whimsy, dialectical swordplay and pungent judgment such as I have rarely heard equalled. And his sense of humour meant that Lewis could mix easily, not just with academics, but people right across society. His taxi driver, Clifford Morris, who used to drive him to and from Cambridge University later in his life, said, "I've seen him sitting in the middle of a crowd of lorry drivers in a transport cafe while he enthralled them with his wit and conversational powers." In Magician's Nephew, once the tree of protection has been planted in Narnia by Diggory, Aslan declares that for many 100 years yet, this shall be a merry land in a merry world. And you see it in the weeks of jollification in the forest that Mr. Tumnus fondly reminisces about to Lucy at the beginning of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And of course it's there at the end of that story, in the ringing hurrahs and singing and laughter when the statues in the witch's castle are resurrected by Aslan. There's the very wild merriment of the Minas and Bacchus and Silenus cavorting around Aslan's How at the liberation of Narnia in Prince Caspian. The laughter never ceased, nor the yodeling cries of yo, 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 yo. It's like a game, it says. And it's in the shouting, the dancing, the laughing, the leapfrogging, the somersaulting, the fireworks at the freeing of the Earthman of Bism in the silver chair. One of the effects of evil of the Green Witch in that book, like Miraz and the White Witch before her, was to crush all joy. "I've nearly forgotten how to make a joke or dance a jig," says Gog. It's what the powers of darkness do in our world too, isn't it? Stifle joy. But now, Gog says, you can see them over there all letting off rockets and standing on their heads for joy. So merriment and jollification and gaiety might seem a bit ephemeral and shallow at first, but in Lewis's stories, they're eruptions of real joy at moments worth celebrating. In his book, Reflections on the Psalms, Lewis says, "The most valuable thing the Psalms do for me is to express that same delight in God which made David dance." He loves their sheer merriment. The writer's appetite for God is gay and jocund. He says, they're glad and rejoice. Their fingers itch for the harp, for the lute and for the harp. Wake up, lute and harp. Let's have a song. Bring the tambourine. Bring the merry harp with the lute. We're going to sing merrily and make a cheerful noise. Noise, you might well say. Mere music's not enough. Let everyone, even the benighted Gentiles, clap their hands. Let's have clashing cymbals, not only well-tuned, but loud, and dances too. In Mere Christianity, which of course was a series of radio talks broadcast in 1944 during the Second World War, Lewis comments that a kind of gaiety is the natural accompaniment of courage. He thought that, like the Christian knight in medieval literature, though you might have to fight in the war, you don't have to do it with a long face. And you see this too in the stories, this merriment in the face of peril. It's there among the Narnians under pressure in Tashban in The Horse and His Boy, or among Tyrion and his companions after Jill's managed to rescue the donkey Puzzle in the last battle, even though they're heading inexorably towards danger and battle and death at Stable Hill. In That Hideous Strength, the third of the Space Trilogy, there's a glorious mystical chapter in which 5 holy and celestial visitants descend upon the manor house at St. Anne's on the Hill, and they come to ransom and Merlin in the Blue Room upstairs. And first, the Archangel, the Oyasa of the planet Mercury. And the narrative alternates between the grandeur of the coming in the Blue Room and its effect on the ordinary folk weighed down in the kitchen huddled by the fire. And from conversing in quiet undertones, they go on to an orgy of speaking, excitedly, loudly, gaily. Dimble maintained that they'd been chiefly engaged in making puns. McPhee denied that he'd ever, even that night, made a pun, but all agreed that they'd been extraordinarily witty. If not plays on words, yet certainly plays upon thoughts, paradoxes, fancies, anecdotes, theories laughingly advanced, yet on consideration well worth taking seriously, had flowed from them and over them with dazzling prodigality. It was like the Inklings on steroids, such toppling structures of meaning, such skyrockets of metaphor and illusion. And then after Venus, Mars and Saturn arrives Jupiter, Glunda Oyasa, king of all planetary kings, Jove, through whom the joy of creation principally blows across these fields of Arbor, and he comes like a long sunlit wave, creamy crested and arched with emerald, that comes on 9 feet tall, with roaring and with terror and unquenchable laughter. Meanwhile, down in the kitchen at the other end of the house, the effect is a divine joviality among half a dozen very ordinary people. Arthur plays his fiddle, and they dance with mad abandon. It involved beating the floor, clapping of hands, leaping high, and no one, while it lasted, thought himself or his fellows ridiculous. Let's pray that our country, wherever you live, might become that bit more of a merry land in a merry world. We need it. Thanks for watching.